If you take a nice deep breath, I'm sure you can feel that love that we mentioned in the beginning, that love that resides within all of us. When Jesus said thousands of years ago, "It is my commandment to love one another as I love you." I command this. Love one another. How are we doing on that so far? We got a little work to do, I think. You know, we're trying, but life keeps presenting itself as so human. We forget that spiritually we're all connected. You know, some years after Jesus, 1,500 years after Jesus, maybe more, my beautiful friend Rumi, the 13th century mystic, Sufi poet, said the forest branches move differently in the breeze, but as they sway, they're all connected at the roots. And that's us. If we take the time in our day and do our practice to remember there's something greater than we are, that we're part of, there's something greater going on right here and now in this moment. We just have a little piece of life right in us right now, but all of these pieces are working together, moving us upward. Remember, this isn't just our teaching that professes the main principle of life is oneness, and its main performance is multiplying itself without dividing itself. That's its expression. We're all part of a supreme unity, but we are expressing as unique individuals, which means we have our right to think independently, act independently, do our own thing, but in the process we are called at a deep sense of our soul to love one another in the process. And that's where we disconnect a bit, because in order to love one another, we have to have an open heart and an open mind. But the world gets tough, and we forget. We forget that we're all in this together. But the good news is, there's not a person here that is not on an evolutionary upward spiral, moving upward, growing and expanding in awareness always. Some of us are just a little bit slower than the others, but we're all going to get there. Because the journey, the place we're going is all the same place. There's not one of us, as the spiritual leaders and mystical teachers call it, our heavenly home. But what it is, we can arrive there at any time, and we really don't have to go anywhere. It's when you and I recognize and remember that we are one with Spirit, with God, with love, whatever name you want to call it. Our arrival at this place called our heavenly home doesn't stop us from growing and expanding and becoming. It just means we do so in that consciousness that Jesus spoke about, the consciousness of oneness. But the reason we say it's a spiral journey upward, because it's a lot of whole darn work to get there. We got a lot to do to arrive at that place, because it's so easy to look at the outer world and think that's what's real and right and true, and forget that soft, small, quiet voice within that tells us oneness. We're all together in this. We belong to each other. We can't see what we're not. We all know the same things and understand the same things. So what happens to us? How does this happen? I mean, right now, I'm sure for many of us, love isn't the top thing. Loving one another isn't the top thing on our agenda. It might be getting through the day with all that's going on in the world right now. But if we remember that when we decided to manifest here in human form, our little spirits decided to come here, we started labeling things, to identify things, to understand things. Oh, that's a tree, that's a book, that's my mom, that's my dad. We started labeling life to understand it. But then as we grew, we started categorizing things. Oh, well, these are all red, these are all blue, this is all this. Oh, this is all good, this is all bad. This is all right, this is all wrong. And on top of that, because we moved everything into separate piles, that we became our mindset and we started to judge all of this, we became fearful of what we didn't know. Fear is just an emotional response to a perceived threat. And instead of sitting down and really thinking, why am I afraid? What is it? What's really going on inside of me? You know, we can turn fear into faith if we do the work. But it takes a lot of work, once again, and we don't all have the focus, the discipline, and the deliberate choice to do that. We get distracted by other things. And so we're in this fear mode. And there's also something else, besides just our own fears that we create from doing this labeling. There's this collective consciousness in life, which is all the energy, the thoughts that have ever been felt and spoken, and everything. And there's a whole lot of fearful thoughts in that collective consciousness that we can tap into. But we can change those too. In fact, I believe that's why we're here. To help clean out the consciousness of life and move it upward. That's our job. That's what we get to do. These pair of opposites can get us in a lot of trouble. Now, I've talked about Jesus and I've talked about Rumi a little later, but let's go back way before that. Let's go back to the ancient Hindu doctrine, sacred doctrine, the Bhagavad Gita, where the creator, God, Gita, the Bhagavad Gita is the song of God. Gita is talking to man, Arjuna, a warrior, and he's relaying spiritual truths that have really lasted through the centuries. The truths are all the same. He's giving Arjuna the truths about life. And what he says is we will find no peace as long as we live in the pairs of opposites. We will find no peace if we live in the pairs of opposites. Do you know that God cannot express in opposites? Only different spectrums, different degrees of colors and beauty and different degrees of life. But God cannot express in opposites. So that's why one of the verities of God is peace. Peace. We can't experience that until we stop living in this confusion. So what do we do about it? Well, I think a greater understanding is what we do. And one of the beautiful metaphors I love is the metaphor of the lotus plant. The lotus has roots in the mud. But the lotus is a metaphor for our divine nature, the purity, the beauty of us, and that urge to express. So the lotus plant grows through this muddy water until it hits the surface, the light. And it grows and expresses as this beautiful flower that pleases everyone who looks at it. Now, if we look at that's within us, that urge, that divine urge, that spark of love is within us that wants to express in the fullness of ourselves, always, not just sometimes. But if we think that this muddy water, that's not someone else's mud. That mud belongs to us. And it's the negative humanness that we've latched onto. But you and I, in order to fully express the beauty, the purity, the goodness that we are, our basic natural goodness, we have to move through the muddy water of our own beingness, our own humanness. Do you guys have any muddy water? I've got muddy water. Oh my gosh, I am feeding, I'm feeding the opposition in the world. Yep, I'm doing that. Oh, how can I bridge the gap? We can make adjustments as long as we're aware it's our muddy water. It doesn't belong to someone else. We don't grow in someone else's consciousness. We grow in our own consciousness. So if we want to keep that idea of this growing into something more, that's in all of us, not some of us, that we all want that. We've got to be able to own ourselves. And part of the growth that comes, wanting to own ourselves, is being able to welcome the unwelcome. We want to be good, perfect. We want to be right. We want to be loved. We want to be all that. But until we accept the parts of us that aren't so pretty, we're not going to be able to be whole, full, and awake and aware, because when we forgive ourselves for being human and learning and growing like we're supposed to do, nobody's sitting there blaming us, unless we listen to somebody, but it's not blaming us, but us. We got to forgive ourselves for being human. That's part of this growth process. That's part of this spiral of evolution. You know, Pema Chodron has a new book out that I just got and I looked at. I haven't been able to read too much of it, but it's called Welcoming the Unwelcome. And it's truly about how we learn to embrace the things we don't really want in life, that aren't the things we think we signed up for in our human mind, but they're part of the growing process of our spiritual being. And so they're there for us. And she has a practice that she says she does. And she goes out to a place that's pretty crowded. She says a park's good. She says, especially when there's a traffic jam, it's great to be able to look at the road. And she said, it's called Just Like Me. And she picks out one particular person and zeroes in on that person and watches them. And her message is, oh, that person is just like me. That person doesn't want to be disappointed. That person doesn't want to be judged. That person doesn't want to goof up and make mistakes and look stupid. That person wants to be loved and to love just like me. And she says she stays there and does that practice until it totally becomes who she is. Just like me. Just like me. That really hit me as a practice to do, because so much of life right now is in opposition. I mean, we've got so much. This is more than most of us thought we could handle, but we are, because we're courageous and we're powerful and we have the tools to know what to do. But I'm going to tell you what, we need each other. We need each other. I talk often about we have a diverse, a wonderful, and interesting creative community, and I do love everybody. And it takes work sometimes, you guys. I'm sure you feel that way about me too, but it's okay, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to work, we're here to grow, and we're here to stick together no matter what. That's what life is all about. No matter what. So we think of the mystics, Jesus, greatest mystic, the mystics that all have the same message, that we are in this together. And truly, what we started out with, if you've noticed, Kirk and I didn't talk about songs. We haven't done that. But that love theme, the real unity, the thing that brings us all together, is that love that is the quality of God's love, the unity of all things. The unity of all things. And another beautiful mystic, Hafez, he talks so much about oneness also, and he said, a perfect one, the illumined one, the one who laughs at the word two, is the only one that can really teach us about love. True love. He has another wonderful, this one just sticks in my mind so much of the time. He says, I have learned so much from God. I can no longer call myself a Muslim, a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Jew, a Christian, a Jew. He said, I can no longer call myself that. I have learned so much truth from God. I can no longer call myself a man, a woman, an angel, or even pure soul. Love has befriended me so much that has turned to ash and freed me from any concept or image my mind has ever known. And that's the heart is where we're all the same, not in the mind. So when we get too caught up in how different we are, and how crazy they are, and how good we are, and how lovable we are, and how unlovable they are, remember, we are the they right here in us. We're all one together. And before I have just us repeat something, I'd like you to close your eyes. And just in that beautiful prayer that Emily gave us today, just so grounded in all the qualities of God's goodness, just feel your feet planted on this beautiful gift we've been given, this gift that we call the earth, that expresses in varieties and differences and creativity. And just feel that life force coming into you as the lotus plant. And even though we may be planted in mud right now, whatever you see that mud to be in your personal life, in the collective life, whatever it is, just feel the power of your being, the power that belongs to all of us equally, that we can come right now into a place where we pull the energy of life up through us. That desire within us, that urge within us to express, to be creative, to love and to be loved, and let that beautiful flower, whatever it is, that's grown through the messy waters of confusion and destructive thoughts and unworthiness and pain and whatever it is, loss, whatever that muddy water is, that we are more powerful because our spirit is infinite, eternal, and powerful right now, not later, not then, but here and now. We are powerful enough to grow into the beauty of our being, the purity of our thought, and the basic goodness that we are. Yes, we may sink at times, but once we've touched that, we know how to get there. I see that beautiful growth process for each and every one of us as we let the power and presence of Spirit, of goodness of God flow up from us and become centered in our heart and flowing out as we are expressed as Spirit right here and right now. So just take a nice deep breath. And just even in our masks, I just invite you to look, just the God in me sees the God in you. And even if you don't say it out loud, say it with your eyes, just look around. That the God in me, I don't know what's going on in your life right now. I don't know the struggles, the pains, the problems, the joys, the abundance that you're experiencing in this moment, but it doesn't matter. Because the God in me sees and loves the God in you. And may I send that to all the people that are watching on live stream, on Facebook Live. Know that love transcends time and space. Love is the truth, and we share that with you right here and right now. From the depth of my being, I thank you for being part of this community. And being here, it matters. I love you.